All right, welcome to Witchpolice Radio. For people who've been listening over the last few months, I haven't recorded a lot of new episodes, so I'm really happy to be kind of getting back into the swing of things now that it's the new year. This episode is with someone who was on the show last year for the first time, and it's cool to have you back. I always like having people back, especially when they're doing interesting stuff, and you clearly are. I mean, we'll talk about it in a minute, but it's especially interesting to have someone on and talking about sort of a different aspect of what they're doing creatively. So it's not just like we're having the same person on talking about the same project over and over again. And the guest on
Yeah,
this episode is someone who has a lot of projects going on. So I think that the best way to start this off is if you want to just introduce yourself and maybe give it a background about what it is that you do musically, because I know there's a lot happening.
yeah. I'm Jonas Scott. I go by the artist name Van Allen, and I'm the owner operator of a new label called Ancient Raven Records. And yeah, exactly just that. Just trying to kind of dive into different aspects of the industry, things being independent driven. So kind of seeing how the industry's changed over the years and over the decades, where an artist and a label relationship should kind of be in the 21st century, and it's kind of changed, I think. So trying different strategies now that are a little bit unique, but I think they're kind of the way of the future of how things should be going, and representing people more as like a third party that kind of stands back and allows the artists to represent themselves and take some control over the management side of things of themselves and the industry. So yeah.
When I talked to you last year, was this all sort of something that you had in the works, like you were planning to start doing, or is it something that came about later?
Yeah, no, I've had the idea and the concept for quite some time. I was fortunate enough to work with another company out here, another label that started up and doing their own production and records and things like that, and working with local content. And I got to kind of cut my chops in the record side of things and see how that the production aspect works. So I kind of I've taken a lot of those tools that I've gained in the past year and applied it to this new idea and concept that I've had for a while, and just wanted to try and do it on my own at my own pace and my own terms. And I'm already finding there's so much that so many different elements to the business and the company that it's time-wise is just incredibly overwhelming. So trying to find myself in more of a niche kind of thing too, where it's focusing on specific aspects that aren't so driven on like limited run record production and tapes seems to be something that people are really into right now, and that's really heavy. So I'm pushing as much as I can to that, being a one-man show. So yeah.
Well, I guess the reason I asked that about the sort of the timing of figuring this out is because it seems like the label just sort of launched and you had a website and everything, and then you got a bunch of tapes that have come out. You got an LP that's coming out in the summer. Like it seems like you had this like instant content, which is great, but I imagine there was a lot of work kind of leading up to that point.
Yeah, like, and I think, and networking, trying to network a lot more than I think I was before, reaching out to artists in the beginning that I just enjoyed, whether they were friends or not, to get like an idea of what they needed too. I reached out to quite a few different people, label owners, record production, management, vice presidents of PR companies, like different types of aspects, and then reached out to the artist and got an idea of where most independent artists are finding that there's a bit of an issue with certain distribution, whether it's or marketing. Social media is its own beast. So there's this whole other aspect that can be touched on, but I'm looking at opening the resources, networking with outside of Canada as well, with things like a publicist in the UK right now that is working with me on some stuff so looking at broadening kind of the horizons for the Manitoba local music to get out to another scene. And that's something I'm working on right now, quite a bit. But yeah, it's been starting with reaching out to people, getting a feel, and then some of them really encouraged me, I think, or just pushed me that, yeah, this is a cool thing. And something that I figured, okay, now's the time to go at it 100%. And that's why I think you're seeing so much stuff coming out lately.
That's awesome. Well, I'm glad to hear it too. I mean, you're obviously passionate about doing this. I think for local artists, yourself included. I mean, obviously you're putting out your own music, which is a great way to make that available now that you have this label set up. But I do want to talk to you about some of the newer stuff that you have going on, some of the tapes you've released recently. But I think that we need to talk about the Saul Sigurdsson record, because that, I know I've talked to you about that elsewhere, but that is such a cool project. It's for people who aren't aware, I guess the basics are that it's a 70s record that came out in Gimli, obviously was a big hit in the community, a lot of cultural relevance to the Icelandic community, and you're putting out a deluxe reissue on vinyl. So how did that come about?
Yeah, I've been lucky enough to come into contact with Saul over a decade ago. I had found his album at a thrift store. And it just, everything about it was just resonating with me. It was just this weird feeling of like, I didn't even understand. This is kind of like pre all the ability to search everything on the internet so crazy, and being in this rural community, not really having a good reference point of this guy and to know where to start to find him. I guess CDs and the format and the way that was back in the day, he did put out some stuff through the museum, but it wasn't received as well as I think my generation picked up on some of these things like vinyl and stuff like that coming back now. So yeah, it was being in contact with him for over quite some time. I had plans to do a cover album of his whole, that whole record about 8 or 9 years ago. I know Scott Nolan, John K. Sampson, they put together something. There was a tribute to Lake Saul Sigurdsson, the Lake Winnipeg fishermen, and they did a concert and they had this whole thing. So that was really great to have him there. He was at that performance as well, and got to experience some of that. He's getting to the age where it's hard to go not seeing him recognized on a certain level, because when you do listen to the music and listen to that album, it's a profound folk album from the era of folk that came out of this little community. I think that all aside too, there's this new generation that just like myself that had never heard it, that really deserves a chance, and he agrees that now's a great time to dive into it. So yeah.
Do you think that those songs kind of in the context of 2021, I mean, I assume they have a different meaning for the younger generation, right? Who maybe didn't grow up with that fishing industry being a huge part of their lives and that sort of thing, but they have it in their family or they have it in the community's heritage and things like that, right?
Yeah, and I mean, and these songs, not all of them, but recorded in the beginning of the 70s, but that the songs really stretch back quite into the 60s and into that decade as well. A lot of these, like the Gazer Hall, one of the songs about it is talking about the Gazer Hall, the parties that were there. I know my family has spoken about our family and our connection to the town coming from that place, and the Riverton Hootenannies, all the songs that were kind of created by all those artists. I think a lot of them, he thanks a lot of them on the original album too, people who were involved in the records and were at those gatherings. And so there's people who have talked about these gatherings and these events and these specific community halls that are kind of ingrained into some of our Icelandic family heritage.
Yeah.
He just kind of goes hand in hand with all that stuff. So that's where I think the younger population too is knowing about him more and more, that they talk to their family. If I've had people reach out and say, hey, it's crazy that you're doing that. People that I had no idea were even had connection to Gimli or family from there, that are saying, hey, my family knew Saul well. The performances, remember in the 70s and the 60s, those Riverton Hootenannies and those parties. That's exactly why I think it's starting to have a new life, and it's coming back. It's bringing family and culture together as well. So,
well, and I like how it's someone who is, obviously well known, especially in that community. And that record, I mean, I had heard of it before, before you started this project too. But I think there's a lot of artists, especially outside of Winnipeg, who have made big impacts on the Manitoba music scene and who are often overlooked, in favor of the same artists over and over again who get recycled as the important ones. And obviously, I mean, as soon as you get past the perimeter, some of the important ones in Winnipeg aren't necessarily important to the rest of the province. They maybe made a mark on one neighborhood in the 60s or whatever, and they got written about because that's where all the people were. But yeah, there's people like Saul, and I'm sure every community has someone like that who really deserves to be documented. So it's cool that you're bringing this back for a new generation.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I completely agree. There's not one town that you go to that you don't hear some story about. There's somebody from that community that was an artist that touched the community in some way, whether it was a song or a painting or something they left behind. Yeah.
Yeah. And we're in a unique place now where some of that stuff can be preserved in this way or other ways because of the internet, because of the fact that people can find this stuff now. A lot of it's kind of gone forever. You hope not, but a lot of it is. But I mean, the fact that you can track this down and track him down and get this rolling is very cool.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what brought me to him. He doesn't live in the province anymore too. He's a professor, or he was a retired professor now, but he was a professor at the university in one of the universities in Alberta. So yeah, I mean, he has a really strong connection with the community out here. He comes out every summer. It's kind of his interlake trip. So connecting with family, connecting with friends and loved ones. And then, yeah, for me to actually find him was just pure chance, really through the school and contacts and things like that. And really, yeah, having to track him down through modern technology to see what he was up to. And that was quite some time ago. So reaching out to him again now and saying, hey, is this something we'd be able to do? And he was absolutely thrilled that I was so thrilled, I think, too, about it. So yeah, we decided to go straight into it and get it done. So yeah.
That's awesome. Well, and I mean, I don't want to imply that your label is only reissuing old stuff from decades ago, because one of the things I thought was very exciting is that you put out a Smokey Tiger tape. And Smokey Tiger is I think one of my favorite local artists, and he's he's been on the show probably 5 times now, and I would have him on every week if I could. Like, he's one of those guys that really is an original in Manitoba as a character and as an artist, right? So how did that connect? I mean, that makes a lot of sense. Your own music, I can see some parallels. I mean, I think on the surface they're very different, but just in terms of how you present it and things like that, I can see that it's a good fit with Smokey Tiger. So how did you arrange that?
Yeah, and I mean, doing the tape production and stuff like that, and doing stuff for his music, and like everybody too, you're forced to really get into somebody's music. You're listening to it quite a bit. You're mastering it for tape, and you're doing things that force you to really focus on all the content. So, but surprisingly, we don't really talk too much about our music as much. And I think that's why, yeah, we are quite similar in the sense that we just do things so independently on our own, that maybe that was just like an unspoken thing, is the music. Like, I didn't have to really offer him anything in terms of production or anything like that, because he's like me. He'll go on his own gear and he'll do it with his own process. And so I respected that, like, immediately. It was one of the reasons why I really wanted to work with him. So I reached out to him, just seeing where he was at with things. And just developed a friendship as well. I've got, some great gear too. We have some tapes coming on the site, restocks for that. Those are the ones in the limited edition blue case, but we also have a bunch of merch too.
Oh, nice.
We got hats. We got the Smokey hoodies, and these are really dope. The top. Yeah, we got a bunch of stuff, and restocking on tapes tomorrow on the website for that one. We sold out on the site, but you can get a hold of Smokey and on his own social media and stuff like that if you need to get a hold of some stock. I think he has some more there. But yeah, wanting to really help in terms of getting local distribution going too. I think that was like the reason why I really focused on, we have the technology to reach out to anybody today, and I could have did the shopping cart thing and kind of picked and choose from all over the place if I wanted to, and really focus on that kind of aspect. But knowing that there's this strong local music community here already, trying to be like somewhat of a smaller scale distribution house. So wanting to work with artists who are independent, producing their own merchandise and wanting to get it out there. So using this as a platform as well to get their stuff out as well, like a third arm for distribution kind of thing.
Well, and I think that's an area where a lot of people who are independent artists struggle with. I mean, they can make the music, they can put it online, but especially when it comes to physical product, I think a lot of people in this day and age don't really know what to do with it. I mean, not I don't know what his position is on it, but Smokey Tiger, I know his last few albums were released only digitally, whereas before he'd been doing CDs as well. So I think that it's kind of a sticking point for some people, and it's nice to see that you're kind of offering that for people doing that niche kind of music. And knowing that there's still this, you're getting the digital download with a cassette, for example. It's great incentive to, not 80% might not even have the cassette player. They're going to get the digital download, but the cassette is the incentive of bringing music back to being this physical thing. I really wanted to do that with some of my own music, and then a lot of the artists started responding to that on a bigger scale of like, oh, that's cool. I think what he's doing is, it's independent, but it's taking it a little bit more seriously. It's taking to a step of, that's kind of why as an independent artist, you almost want that representation that's not you, the artist as well. You want to have something like a business that acts on behalf of those things. So I think that's another great aspect for some people who want to stay independent, in a sense, but they don't really want to have to sacrifice all their time to doing all these different things. And that's where, as a distribution house, it works out perfectly. If they already have merchandise that's already produced as well, and they want a place to push it. And then quality, like we try and I'm just trying to really bust out like just good, presentable, nice, and good sounding tapes. And we use type 2 right now. I've been running out of stock quite a bit lately, but just basic type 2, and then we'll go ahead and put the label on them. And then you're gonna love this. Nice.
I did a test print today. I had to get some stuff, but then there's little things like adding like a back flap that comes in the back of the case that has the back list, and it actually folds out into a poster.
And that's something I think that like people are missing a lot of the time. I mean, as someone who has never left physical media, like I feel like I need that, right? I mean, one of the reasons I haven't switched over to digital, not there's anything wrong with streaming or whatever, but the reason I haven't switched over is because I have this kind of tactile obsession with needing to be looking at something and holding something when I'm listening to music. And so having that extra element, reading it on the screen, seeing the credits on the screen of lyrics or an image is fine, but it's not the same as being able to, open it up, fold it, unfold it in your hands and see the artwork and see the kind of care and time that's been put into creating something like this. So it's very cool that you're putting effort onto that end of it too, on top of just making the music, right?
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, that's really what it is trying to really, if you're going to do, like, I'm not at the scale quite yet, but I'm starting to realize that if I could hire somebody else and afford to, I would, because the amount of time it takes to do something like that, it just takes a lot of care and attention to detail, which I love doing. And it's that attention to detail produces a good quality. And I think that's what, on a consumer level, that's what people have been liking, is that they see this tape and they look at it and they're like, whoa, where did this come from? Like a lot of people too, I think, that are in the tape community, which is a small like cassette culture thing, but they see it and they're like, who produced that? And they're wanting to know, okay, well, it's not this person, not that person. So they're like, oh, he's making this is coming from his own thing. So it's not like this DIY look. It almost looks like this is done by like a pro thing. So, and it is, the audio quality is quite pro.
Well, and for people who are into tapes, I mean, I'm one of them. People who there's definitely local labels that I've bought a tape at a show or something, and then realized it was on a local label, and then tracked it down and bought a bunch of other stuff over the years from those labels, because you want to find out. I mean, whoever is doing the label is curating something that you dig, right? So it's like, oh well, I need to look into this more. So having that kind of style to it also helps, because it's not just a tape with a name written on it in Sharpie, which having been in punk bands and stuff, that's cool too. But there's a certain like professionalism and stuff that comes with having a look and a feel to it that people will recognize and want to hopefully get more of.
Yeah, and you can get creative with that too. Major labels won't think outside the box, or even mid-level independent labels. It's hard to, once the formula is working, you just follow the formula and hope that it's just monetary and it grows slowly. And like major labels aren't even worried about some of this stuff that's going on. But for somebody that's on the scale that I'm at, being able to produce things that are unique and different, and thinking outside the box of how I'm going to present them, like distributing your music into your tapes into thrift stores for the first week, a small number locally, because the consumer basis of what you're selling is probably those thrifty younger types that are already picking the vinyl and the tapes at those places. And if they come across one of these new tapes, it's a great way to bring them to the site, and just a unique way of finding new content too. I've done that already with a few tapes. It's just kind of, instead of picking that day, I went out and just slipped a couple tapes in. Haven't heard anything back yet, but I mean, little things like that, wanting to create a bit of a relationships. They're unique special edition ones, so you can kind of communicate directly with that label, like you found a little treasure or something like that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, actually. It's a cool way of doing it. Just thinking about the amount of time you're putting into this, and like you said, it's if you could hire someone else, you would. How has this affected your own ability to make your own music? Have you been? I know you put out a tape recently of some more of your stuff, which is cool. But have you been sort of trying to juggle that side of creativity and then the label side?
Yeah, like I definitely am taking a lot of time on the label, and it does take a toll creatively. Although it didn't really slow. I think something just happened. Maybe it was the whole situation of lockdown and everybody for the last so long that really pushed so much content out so quickly. You just had so much time to think and stuff. And for me, it's really is just this therapy process. There's some things I've uploaded to YouTube that are, streaming some records and just kind of playing along to them. Just showing the process of how some songs are written, and it might be a 45-minute little jam or something like that, but filming it and those kind of things are all it's all therapy really, and just trying to, I guess, bring people in and get people involved in that. And so the products of all that is something like a record. So I did have the ability to produce enough to come up with another tape. I was mentioning earlier that I've been in contact with a PR company that's from London, or they have offices in London and LA, and that's kind of, it was through my own music and this most latest release that I got in touch with this person. They got in touch with me about working with them. So I'm trying to kind of utilize, both facets of this situation, where being an artist and then an independent label owner that has some cool content creators that I'm working with, to see how I can broaden this horizon for everybody, not just myself. So I pulled some of my stuff. This is unfortunate. I did pull some of my tape stuff. It's a way of doing things independently too. I'm sure a lot of independent artists know that you don't have those people holding you back and telling you like, let's wait on it. We got to do some PR work. We got to do a bunch of stuff. Let's shop this around. And you're not thinking that, right? And I really wasn't thinking that too. But this one individual approached me as a really genuine person, or she seems very genuine. Her label is quite reputable, or her agency. So it was an opportunity I really wanted to utilize. So sacrificing a bit of that last minute, pulling some of the music down, and waiting on this next release. I might even redesign the layout of how these songs are going to be structured for a new release, but
Okay,
this will be marketed on a much bigger level.
cool.
And probably outside of, well, of course, like reviews and things like that, and marketing it in Canada, but a big push to the European market on this next one. So
That's cool. Yeah. I mean, like your last record, the one I have, the LP that we talked about last time. That's a great album. Like I had it on my list of my favorite local albums of the year. And
yeah, that's awesome.
I mean,
man.
it well-deserved spot on there too, for sure. It's a really great
Thank
record.
you.
So I'm glad that you haven't stopped creating your own stuff with the Van
Yeah.
Allen project, because I mean,
Yeah.
I'd like to hear more of it too as a listener. What do you sort of have for the near future planned with the label? Are you going to be sort of consistently putting out tapes throughout the year, or do you have sort of a schedule of when you're hoping to make releases happen, or what's your sort of strategy for that?
I mean, based on the there's a lot of interest, so that's why it's you start these things and you're ambitious, and if you don't have all the like, I'm just not this huge factory that can bust out all these tapes and do all this stuff. Although I want to do these larger quantity runs and things like that, the setup that I have to get the quality of the audio that I want is still on this smaller scale to be able to bust up at that level. So I do have plans on looking at expanding it. There's some machines that I've been looking at too, and tape duplicating machines that might help with the process of getting more tapes produced at the same time. But there's other things that I can't produce records on my own too. That's another thing. But having the knowledge of record production and doing all that stuff now is a great thing to offer independent artists, which seems to be the way to do it. And then also trying to offer a bit of limited knowledge, but enough to put out, to strategize a record release that isn't going to be overblown in a sense, but also profitable if you're putting in the time. Because I think that's the big thing. A lot of artists know now that the only person that really cares about my music the most is me. And if I put that same kind of attention into the marketing aspect, the PR, can I get somebody to work with me? Is there a label that wants to work with me that can help? That kind of level of seriousness will produce something good. And you just have that mentality that somebody that runs a business will look at and say, hey, this is somebody that I could work with, or maybe this is somebody that could go somewhere. So yeah, there's a lot of different things I feel like I can offer. I think it's just based on what the clients who come to me and want things done based on what they want is what kind of where I'm trying to head. So we'll see too. This next year is going to be probably full of stuff, but I know the record's coming out, and the Saul Sigurdsson record's coming out in August sometime. I can't also promise exact dates with record production right now. The whole thing is a little nutty, but I do have the digital. I don't know if you can see that. There's a digital album card that I've created that's pretty cool. And it's in that incentive of trying to bring things back physically and local. So the shipping cost on something like this, I'm worked out to be quite low. But instead of just getting a code sent to you by email or just clicking a button, you go on, you do it yourself, and you get this little card and a little poster that comes in an envelope in the mail. Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, little things like that, and bringing back maybe some type of modern physical aspect to it, because there is like it looks like a little album, and when you open it up, you get your code and all this stuff. There's a little sticker, and the back is the track list and all this stuff. So yeah, trying to get creative with different formats and experiment a little bit too. And I think artists like that as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Different things, yeah.
Because that's the kind of thing that they can't necessarily do themselves, right? I mean, anyone can put something up on Bandcamp, but those little touches are kind of an extra bonus that I think listeners would like, and artists probably appreciate as well, as just sort of an alternate way to get the music out there in this format that's so kind of easy and simple.
Yeah, exactly. I went into a Red Apple the other day, and I found some cassette tapes, and I was like, this is just nutty that they're selling cassette tapes here. And they were just some C60s and stuff like that, but enough to Type 1 tapes just to record on, and they're new and they're sealed. And I'm like, okay. and I look down next to it, and they're selling this portable, brand new, these portable cassette decks. So I was like, yo, like this is like, at least it's coming back to the point where you can go and get like a $45 deck, and you can take out your little boombox and play these tapes if you really wanted to play the tape version. You know what I mean? So it's accessible, at least to a point now.
Yeah, it's a cool culture shift how it's coming back. It's nice to see.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone wants to find out about what the label's doing, here are the releases that are out there, maybe buy some of the merch, pre-order the LP of the Sigurdsson record, what's the best way to find you online? Where do they go?
You just visit www.ancientravenrecords.com, and cool. You can visit the shop on there. The shop has different sections. There's a merch table, records, cassettes, all the different merch. I have a vintage clothing section. That's something that's I've been utilizing funds to help drive some of the music production as well. So yeah, if you're into vintage clothing, I have a section to sell vintage records as well. I just haven't, that's another thing that I overly ambitious, start something and I have all these ideas, but everything else picked up before I could really get documenting all the records and getting that stuff up for sale. But eventually I'll have more of the vintage records up there too. So yeah, and all the merch, everything's on the site as well. So
awesome.